Hey everybody, and welcome to Mukilteo, Washington. Great to have you here. Thank you for joining. And once again, we have very smoky skies here in the Puget Sound area of Washington State. In fact, much of Washington and even into Oregon now, and certainly British Columbia, where much of the smoke is originating, with wildfires up there. So we'll see if anybody jumps on board. Looks like the first person just jumped on board, whoever you might be. Thanks so much for joining. Nice to have you here. I heard some people commenting, thank you for the thumbs up. I heard some people commenting that the seals are out, so I'll keep my eyes out for that. Oftentimes we'll see seals or even California sea lions. But what you're seeing right now is the result of all this wildfire smoke that's mostly coming from British Columbia, the Okanagan area, which is, if you're going to go north of, say, central Washington. Debs, thanks for coming on board. Thank you so much. Looks like it's just you and I for right now, Debs. But I'm glad you're here. And now we have someone else. I'll tell you another news flash, you guys. The mosquitoes are out, right? The Kit Kat 51, welcome. Now the Kit Kat 51, I'm trying to think, is that your Periscope handle too? Or do you have another, assuming you are on Periscope, do you have a handle over there? Because we might have some inconsistencies and I may not recognize some of you right off the top. Let's just kind of show you the way it looks out here tonight, you guys. Just incredible, because off to the northwest here, visibility is really poor. And you know what? For those folks up in British Columbia, it's much worse in much of BC. Now the funny thing is, Christian Sassi, my friend in Surrey, British Columbia, was telling me that he had heard that Vancouver Island, or at least Sydney. Oh, okay, there you go, Kit, right on. Thanks for clarifying. How could I not know with Kit in the title? Right on, Kit, thanks for joining. Well, you know Christian, obviously. Yeah, he was telling me that in Sydney, where the hawklet is at the Eagle's Nest, that it's being spared the smoke. The winds, I guess, are working in its favor right now. I got to get this shot with the DSLR, you guys. Since we're going to have a boat going through here, I got to get that shot, right? All right, nailed that. Okay, just checking. Yeah, okay, I got it right in the middle of the reflection, so that'll make for a nice photo to share on social media. So I know, Kit, you had mentioned down in California, obviously, Kit, for those of you who don't know, she's in Redding. They're dealing with wildfire smoke there as well, but just look at this. It's almost like a red film. It's not just the reflection that you see right down the center of your screen on the water. Right and left, there's just like this pink hue on the water. It's pretty incredible. Now, as mentioned just a moment ago during the Periscope live stream, the sun, when I was in Snohomish last night, are the waters that calm, or is it the flat light? The water is very calm right now. The tide is going out, low tide in nearby Everett's during the 9 o'clock hour. So it's just really calm all the way around. If you watched a couple of my more recent scopes, you know, I've shown you where seagulls are feeding. And once again, we're seeing that very same thing going on, same exact area too. Let's see the seagulls down there just going crazy, apparently feeding on something. Same exact spot as the last time we were here. It's interesting, this YouTube app has some additional options. Let me just click the magic wand and see what it says. Oh, I can apply different filters. I don't want to do that. I want to keep it real. Smoky in Redding as well. Yeah, well, it's really unfortunate, really, for so many people, especially those who have breathing issues. You know, if you're asthmatic, for example. You know, my mom's up visiting. I believe she's here now from Arizona. She's got a place on Camino Island up here, and I would think that she's going to struggle with this air. Got a boat just about to enter there. We'll get another shot framed for you here on YouTube, and I'm going to get the shot with my DSLR as well. Now, I'll talk a bit more about what we can expect from the sun in just a short moment. It's already starting to happen, actually. There we go. Nice. So What I've noticed, and maybe you've seen this in photographs, or if you live in the area, you've observed it, there comes a point where as the sun starts to sink lower into this smoke, this layer of smoke, it begins to turn red. So we're seeing that right now in the lower half of the sun. It's actually a darker color than the upper half of the sun. It's not going to show up very well here on the broadcast, but to the naked eye, and I think it'll come across on my DSLR photos too, it's slowly sinking into this more rich redness, and that's what's going to continue to happen as it sinks now. And then again, the interesting thing is going to be, will it disappear because the smoke is so thick? Will it be obscured completely from our view before it even sets behind Whidbey Island there? That's the question. I can tell you already, if you noticed, the reflection on the water now is not nearly as intense, nor is it as wide as it was earlier, because when the sun was higher up, it was still above mostly much of the smoke. And so it could cast more light down into this area. But now that there's so much smoke between us and the setting sun, it's just not able to penetrate. Its light is not able to penetrate as brightly. I gotta change the settings on my camera because it is not as bright. Welcome, somebody just joined, I appreciate it. It's just crazy to, you know, look both ways and not see any mountains, or it looks more like the moon in the picture than the big orange orb of sun we usually see. Absolutely, Deb. It's just crazy, isn't it? And, you know, my friend Christian, I mentioned him earlier, he returned yesterday from a trip overseas, and he was telling me last night that the moon was so red up in British Columbia because, again, they have even more smoke than we do. Our moon, to me, it looked copperish last night because of the smoke, but it was very red, according to my friend Christian. And he had promised his wife, though, that he wouldn't do any live streaming on his first night back. So he resisted temptation and he honored the promise that he made to her. But tonight, he's very likely to live stream on YouTube and or Periscope, probably both, I imagine, separately, and show the moon, a red moon. Now I checked and asked Siri, quite frankly, as I was driving out here tonight, what time is moonrise today? Hey, Adriana Monti, nice to have you here. It's good to see you. Thanks so much for checking out the YouTube broadcast live, Adriana. I really appreciate it. And when I asked Siri, the moonrise tonight was during the 5 o'clock hour. So I think a very good chance we'll see Christian probably during the 9 to 10 o'clock hour, maybe 10 to 11. But that will be interesting to see if he gets a good, solid red moon again. And he's got the equipment to show it so well. So we'll see. So Adriana, since you just joined, the sun is getting redder to the naked eye anyway, because it's setting now, lowering. And as it gets lower, there's so much more thickness of smoke in this blanket of smoke that's kind of hugging the lower atmosphere here. So its light is, it's turning more red to our eye, and its light is more diffused now. There's less light getting through. You're having connection issues. Oh, sorry to hear that. I mean, look at it this way, you guys. Toward the north end of, I mean, we're still relatively speaking on the south end of Whidbey Island on the left there, but normally we can see for quite some distance, but look out there. I mean, look at that. Very little visibility. And let me show you the south end of Whidbey Island. I mean, you can see it, but nothing else out there. Just crazy. And I think it says something that there are actual other people out here tonight, at least above the grass, because I am at a cemetery, because oftentimes I'm the only one out here. And I think the reason we're seeing others out here is because everybody wants to get a look at this unique scene. Now, if I tilt up, you will eventually begin to see blue sky, but it's almost like it's directly overhead, all right? So I'll tilt as far as I can go, and that's still not going to be quite as high up as we need it to be. But then I'll pick up the tripod and kind of move it overhead so you can see where the blue is. Now, keep in mind, we're still looking at the smoke. Now you're kind of getting a sense for that thick band of smoke and where it might be really thick. And now you see we start to lose it, right? So we actually are picking up some of that blue here. We'll go all the way up, and then I'll pick up the tripod, and we'll look straight up, and we'll look this way. Isn't that something? So wherever you are in the area, if you look straight up, you're going to find some blue sky. But then when we come back down, it's a different story. Anyhow, we are still seeing the sun, but I don't know how much longer that's going to last. Isn't that really bizarre looking? Look at it, how it looks on the iPhone. That is something. And now the reflection is just increasingly faint on the water. Now, I've got my DSLR, and I'm going to show you what it looked like here a short while ago. I'll show you a picture that was taken just a few minutes ago, and you'll see how much more reflection there was on the water. That's on the back of my Canon 7D. And then let's show you the live picture. Okay? And now, once again, back of my DSLR. I mean, the camera is it's just ever changing right now as the sun sets. And we'll see if that sun disappears once again before it even reaches the island. Because it's just lowering now, and the smoke is increasingly thick as it begins to set here in the lower atmosphere. I've never seen it this smoky. We had, well, heck, I think it was 2 years ago, we had some really nice sunsets that were, and sunrises. I remember doing broadcasts. Let's see what this bird is here. Is this an eagle or is it a seagull? I'm having a hard time. It looks rather large out there. Let's see what we have here, guys. I'm gonna let you enjoy it from there, and I'll get a shot with my, it is a great blue heron. There we go. That was a great blue heron. I should have known. It's coming in a little early for the herons in the area. They usually come in during twilight. You probably heard the foghorn there or the horn from the ferry as it sets out. It's funny, I say fog, because we normally hear that horn, yes, when visibility is not good. And when is visibility not good? More often than not, it's because of it's foggy in the area, but this is due to smoke. Ferry's just now leaving Mukilteo. Once it appears in view, I'll show it to you. Normally I'm just a little bit off to my right. Thank you, Adriana. It is really bright red. And just as we look at the ferry, 5:49 p.m. cannot shine through as it's rising, but I think as it gets higher up, remember when I showed the blue sky above? I think once it gets higher in the evening, so now I guess it makes more sense that moon scope from Christian, if he's going to hang in there, will probably be later in the evening, because that moon, in order to be seen, is going to have to rise above the smoke, the most thick band of smoke. It's going to have to get higher elevation. All right, now let's go back. Yeah, it sure is, Kit. It's just crazy. I mean, there's very little reflection now. I mean, I see it, you see it, but compared to what we had earlier, it's really, really diffused. Now, last night in Snohomish, I mentioned this earlier, I was live streaming on Periscope, and the sun disappeared just before it met the horizon because the smoke was just so thick. So I mentioned it earlier, and just in case you joined late, I'll mention it again. I'm going to hang in there and see if that's what happens here. Everything's so washed out now. The sun is so red, you're right. And I'm just curious as to whether it'll disappear before even sinking behind Whidbey Island there. Am I zoomed in all the way? I think I am. Yes, I am. Some guys setting out on a small boat just over here. Looks like there are 4 people on there. The one that's going right to left. So yeah, there are news stories being done about air quality, and I retweeted one of them from earlier today, a report saying that the air quality is extremely unhealthy. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you so much for checking out the broadcast. Really appreciate it. You usually walk the dogs this time of night. The moon should be just over her shoulder. The great thing about Periscope is I can bring the comments back up. Just over left shoulder, it is nearly full tonight. Maybe when it is darker out, it will show. You know, here's my thought. Since it's going to be nearly full, Deb, I'm confident we'll see it later in the evening once it gets high enough above. You know, I got to think. Okay, if I stick my arm out and I go up about 45 to 70 degrees, it's probably going to be at that elevation when it'll really start being visible. And I'll tell you what, it's not humid here, but it just feels mucky, you know? It just feels mucky. I dare even utter the word humidity in the same sentence with this area for some of those of you who, yeah, a little sticky, yeah. But, you know, I was about to say, humidity, you know, you want to find it, you go to Florida, you go to Houston, or as our friend Christian recently discovered, you go to Singapore. Wow, you can really see where the blanket of smoke is kind of delineated here. Yes, it will make it red. Our friend Christian Sassi was saying that it was very red as he looked at it last night from, here, let's zoom out, from just north of the border here in southern Canada. He lives north of Washington State in Surrey, British Columbia. And he said it was so red there last night. And so he's aiming to do a live stream. He said it will be on Periscope and or YouTube. So I think he's really looking forward to showing that. So I think it's 99.9% chance that he'll be showing a live stream tonight of a very, very red moon. And he has the equipment to really zoom in, and if he's going to really go for it. That's if he's inclined to set it all up, because he's got a great camera to do that and a great lens. Okay, so let me tell you what's happening right now. He never actually sleeps, Gary. we talk about this quite a bit, he and I. It's amazing how good he said he actually was feeling jet lagged today, but that's the first mention of it. He sounded so chipper when he got off the plane yesterday. But anyway, right now I can see it's starting to fade on the lower part of the sun. Doesn't it look so small without its, and Deb, I'm telling you right now, the very lower portion of the sun is really going dim. So from here on out, it's going to start to fade, and I predict that I would say it's a 90% chance that we'll lose sight of the sun before it reaches the ridge atop Whidbey Island there. So it's going to disappear before it sets, in other words. Let's see. I could be entirely wrong, but I think that's highly probable because I can just see it now. I can see the visibility of the sun right here to the naked eye. Of course, I can see things a lot more clearly than you can through a smartphone. But I can see already that the smoke is just starting to really knock down the light in the lower half of the sun. And it's starting, actually now the lower tip of the sun is just disappearing. I would say the lower eighth of the sun to my eye is being obscured right now. I'm going to really change my settings here to even get a picture, I think, because the light's so low on my DSLR. Hey, Steve! Can Maggie hear this scope, Steve? If she can, I'll say hi. Yes, all right. Hey, Maggie. Maggie is a dog, everybody. Maggie. Hey, Maggie. Maggie is my dog of 15 years, you guys, or was my dog. Steve graciously took Maggie in recently. Unfortunately, Maggie, after being startled by my youngest son, who's 6, bit him in the face because my son basically dove at her while she was resting. And she had previously scraped his hand when he was holding a piece of food and she went to get it. And I just can't risk it. So, a tough call, but the thing is, my brother Steve has lived with me in years past prior to my getting married, in fact, and he lived with us shortly after I got married. And Maggie is really close to Steve, so Steve has found a good, Maggie is in a very good home now. And very well cared for, and she's probably going to get really fat because he feeds her really well. But the good news is he walks her often, so that's just awesome. Yeah, I agree. I tell you what, I'll be very, very transparent with you. When my brother said he, with great enthusiasm, he would take her, it brought a tear to my eye, I will tell you that. I can barely see the sun now, you guys. Because Maggie's a member of the family, you know. I rescued her in 2002 when she was a puppy in New Mexico. But yeah, I had to take my youngest son, my wife and I, we took him to Seattle Children's walk-in in Mill Creek. And fortunately, stitches weren't required. I think I see a seal. But you guys, look at that. Dogs are the best. You can't be too careful with dogs around children. No dog's fault. Yeah, well, you see, my youngest is very outgoing, and he's very, I don't know, he loves Maggie, but he always kind of, no pun intended, hounds her, and she just can't get a rest, you know? And she was completely startled and just had I think a de facto reaction. And she's never been aggressive towards kids. She's taken so much from kids. You know, I was previously married. And so I've got a total of 4 kids, and my 2 oldest, you know, were raised with Maggie. My oldest still lives with me. He's 20. And never had any issues. Boy, look at the sun. The sun is barely, you can just see it. Look how diffused it is. You can barely see the sun right now. In fact, I'm having trouble finding it with the camera. Okay, here we go. Yeah, you guys, it's disappeared. You can barely make, I just missed your comment. Let's touch the screen. I love this about YouTube Live. When they get startled, instinct takes over. Yeah, Jackie. And she's put up with so much, you know, in terms of really physical active kids, and she's an older dog, right? Now, I have a brother-in-law who many, many years ago, when his kids were young, he had a family dog who bit a another child who was visiting the home, in other words, a friend of one of his children. And he didn't hesitate to put the dog down. And in this particular case, I was really struggling with it. I had scheduled a consultation with my vet just to talk to an expert, and I was really struggling with it. In this particular case, because I didn't feel like, I've never known my dog to be aggressive. I thought you were going to be wrong about the sun disappearing. Well, yeah, the sun's disappeared, guys. Or you can, you know what? You can see it barely on the iPhone, but I can't see it. I can't see it. So the iPhone's just picking up a trace. It was a very hard decision, you know. And you have to remember, when you go to doctors and you know, walk-in clinics, and they ask you how did it happen, and you said dog, and they said whose dog, and they say our dog, and they said has this happened before? Well, kind of, you know, took some food real quick unexpectedly out of his hand because he was kind of taunting her with it, maybe, you know, dangling it, and scraped but didn't break skin. Now all of a sudden you have a record too, and I don't know, I mean, a record of what's happened, and I certainly don't want to be a person who's putting my child at risk. And so really for me, it's more about, it's really more about, it's not that Maggie's a bad dog, it's just that given this, you know, I've got a very physical 6-year-old who loves his dog very aggressively, you know, it's not a good combination. Many health departments have strict rules. Well, look at this, guys. The sun, rather, is, I really can't see it. I can maybe think I see it where I should see it. Just to the left of that kind of dip. I think it's just over in this area right here. Let's see if we can get that back in focus. It should come back. There we go. Yeah, it is. It's just there. But it's very, if you were out here and you were just strolling along and you didn't know where to look for the sun, you wouldn't find it. And honestly, with the naked eye, I'm barely fooling myself into seeing it, I think. It's just incredible. Anyhow, just very thankful to my brother Steve and his girlfriend Sheila for their not only willingness to help out. We have a Jack Russell who goes after people, kids or adults, who hit. Really upsets him, gets mouthy without really biting. Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, when I rescued Maggie, they told us she was part Jack Russell Terrier. She's bigger than your typical Jack Russell Terrier, though. And honestly, I think she's many types of dogs. And my vet up here, you know, put her down in paperwork as an American Eskimo, which really surprised me. And so I asked my vet about that. He said, you know, really our dogs are, if we did the genealogy workup on them, we'd find out there are many breeds. So, but Maggie is just a tremendous, tremendous dog. And she's been a great family dog. She almost seemed like to have a sixth sense and looked out for my wife. When she felt like if there was a spider, I remember when my wife was pregnant, I think with our first, it was my 8-year-old. She saw a spider. We were traveling on the road and Maggie was with us and she's like, at attention, barking at the spider because she knew my wife was upset. She's just a great dog. And I miss her, you know. I'll go home tonight and I'll think, okay, I got to walk Maggie, or, you know, got to do this for Maggie, and all this routine is now gone, you know. But the truth of the matter is, I don't dwell too much on it. I feel it, but I don't dwell too much on it because I know that she's alive and she's in a fantastic home. My goodness, my brother sent me a picture the other night, or a short video. He had just cooked a tri-tip steak. He had to slice some up for her, and she scarfed it all down, you know? So let's go back many years when Maggie was very young. My brother was living with me where I can visit Maggie, you bet. She's up in Arlington. So, I mean, just up Highway 9 from where I live in Snohomish. So my brother, when we lived in New Mexico, I was working in television there, and he came down, lived there for a while, and lived with me. And there's a little town outside of Albuquerque called Placitas, and he worked at the Placitas bakery, deli. And so he could bring home scrap meats and cheeses. And he would come home, and Maggie became a big Steve fan from that moment forward, if she wasn't already one, because all those scraps of meats and cheeses were for Maggie. And so, you know, fast forward all these years, and whenever Steve would come over to visit me here in Snohomish, Maggie just instantly goes into an ecstatic, whimper, longing, temperament, hyperactivity, so thrilled when Steve would walk in the door. And just, you know, and dogs remember, don't they? Dogs, if they accept someone into the pack, and if they're used to living with that person, and even years could pass. I mean, like for example, my dad passed in 2009. But if my dad were away all that time and could still walk in the door, Maggie would go crazy for my dad. Yes, the sun has disappeared, and I would venture to say it has now set, but it disappeared before it set. So that is exactly what we saw last night when we were in Snohomish, which is east of here by about 15 miles, if that. And that's what has repeated itself. Now, I took some pictures. You just got the notice that Mark Horner is live. Well, you guys, would you like to review some photos with me that we took so we can just kind of, what I'll do, just a second here, let's see if we can conveniently just switch cameras. What I'll do is I'll show you the back of the camera, and you can see the pictures that I took earlier right through this sunset, okay? So let's flip it back around. And I'll show you what we have here tonight. So let's show you the back of the camera. And I'll post some tonight, okay? So now, here we go. We can just watch what happened here tonight. I can zoom in a little bit too. And eventually a few boats went by, didn't they? Here's one right here. So here's a boat that's just about to pass right in it. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. See how well that turned up. Not bad. Actually, I wasn't shooting probably as fast as a shutter speed as I really should have been for that, but it still makes for a really nice picture. It's funny that some of you just got the notification that I'm live. That's funny. There we go. That was the great blue heron that went by. Here's the sun just starting to disappear now, remember? How the smoke is so thick at the lower elevation, it really started to obscure the sun. And now we're really struggling to see it at all. There it is over to the left a little bit. And now it's gone, but it hasn't even set. And we're really struggling to see it right there. I know where it's at though, it's right, about right there. But it hasn't quite set yet. And then that was much earlier. So you can see as it set, what happened is at the lower elevation, the smoke is so thick that it just was hard for the sunlight. Well, you see it, less and less of it starts to get through. The reflection on the water becomes narrower. There's less reflection to the left and to the right on the water, where we had more of a prominent pink throughout. And now there's barely any reflection as the sunlight, and there's the sun, but there's really no reflection. So that's how thick, it's all due to just how thick the smoke is out here, especially, you know, at the lower, probably what, I'm gonna guess 500 feet, or maybe just a bit more than that. And that's why we couldn't really see the sunset tonight. There was no sunset, there was a sun disappearance. Well, there were certainly, to be official, yes, I know there was a sunset, but you know what I mean. And then off to the northwest, we struggled to see anything. And just out there, there's a boat. And if we look at the south end of Whidbey Island, you know, only lightly, I think I'm used to it. I think if I had stepped out of a normal day into this one, I would say I smell smoke, because at times I could smell it today, but I think I'm just used to smelling it. In fact, I think we're all used to not only smelling it now, as faint or non-distinct as it might be to most of us, but we're wearing it too. I think that this, what is it, carbon? Whatever these particles are, I think they're settling upon our skin. And if you're out doing anything and you start to, you know, you start to feel a little bit sticky, even though it isn't really all that humid, certainly by not many of your standards elsewhere around the world, around the US. And, What really needs to happen is obviously the fires need to be under control and you know, first of all contained and then extinguished. And then we need to get the winds also blowing in a different direction for those of us who selfishly want to, and actually I'm not going to go travel to do this, but the folks who are hoping to see the eclipse later this month. Anyhow, guys, I think I'm going to end it right there. I will likely be back live streaming tomorrow night, and we'll see how things look there. I will probably be, rain is usually the only solution. That's a good point, Deb. A good storm would be great right now, especially since our storms usually come off the Pacific, so they're going west to east and push things out of the area and clear the air. We really need one of those. But anyway, tomorrow night I'm likely to stream, and if I do, I'll probably be much closer to British Columbia than I am right now. More on that if it happens tomorrow. Anyhow, I really want to thank those of you who are watching live tonight. Thank you, Kit. I appreciate it very much. No sign of the moon. You know, I was out here a couple of nights ago and I saw the moon right about this time, but it's not going to be the case just yet. I do thank you, Carrie. Thank you all for your very kind words and for your interest in my broadcasts. I want to highly recommend that you follow my friend Christian Sassi. If you're interested in this subject, especially the smoke, Christian is in British Columbia, and he is aiming to scope tonight or be on YouTube, one or the other or both, and he will show a very red moon, I think is what he's very likely to show. Red not in all actuality, but that's the way it would appear to us, or to him especially, in the British Columbia, because there's even more smoke up there. So if you would like to follow him, he is Sassi Photo on YouTube. Ray says, thank you for the show. Thank you, Ray, for watching. Yes, there you go, Sassi Photo on YouTube. He's doing a phenomenal job. He's also on Periscope as Sassi Photo as well. You know, I'll tell you what I'm noticing that I don't normally notice. My lips are dry, and they almost feel borderline chapped. They're not, but that is a result of what's in the air. I have no doubt about it, because I'm used to talking, guys, you know that. And usually I'm up here and it's just a nice breeze with cooler air off the water. That's not what I'm feeling here tonight. And Deb says yes, in all capital letters, she can relate. That is a definite difference. And I'm sure, yeah, especially as I just kind of wet my lips, yeah, this is due to smoke, no doubt about it. But once again, thank you all so much for watching. Have a great evening, and maybe I'll see you watching Christian's Sassi Photos live streams tonight. Regardless, have a great evening or day wherever you might be. And for anybody catching the replay on YouTube, I really appreciate you watching. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. Wet handkerchief. That's a good idea. Good insight, Ray. That's a great idea. Thanks, Kit. Stay safe in Reading, and hope your air gets better soon there as well, and your fires are put out. Good night, everybody.